Chuck Norris disguised himself as a homeless man in Central Park, not for a movie, but to conduct a real social experiment. What happened next, no one saw coming. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and let us know where you're tuning in from. The golden morning sun poured over Central Park, casting long shadows beneath towering oaks and maples lining the curving walkways. The crisp autumn breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves and distant coffee stands. It was just another busy New York morning, joggers pacing to their beats, dogs tugging on leashes, families laughing as they strolled past. And in the middle of it all, barely noticed, sat a man whose quiet presence would soon stir up more than just fallen leaves. Slumped on a worn-out bench, just off the main path, was a man who looked like he had weathered years of hard living, oversized coat full of holes, jeans stained and frayed, sneakers mismatched and beaten down. His face, shadowed by a ragged hoodie and covered in a rough gray beard, was nearly unrecognizable. In his hands, he clutched a crumpled brown paper bag like it held the last piece of his life. But behind the disguise was someone the world thought they knew, Chuck Norris. Yes, that Chuck Norris, the action star, martial artist, American icon. But today, he wasn't here to throw punches or deliver roundhouse kicks. He was here for something deeper, to confront prejudice, challenge assumptions, and expose how society reacts when it sees someone as less than. He'd seen enough viral videos, news stories, people being judged and mistreated just based on how they looked. Chuck knew that words alone weren't enough to shift public opinion. People believe what they see. So he decided to show them something they couldn't ignore, the raw, unfiltered truth. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment stunt. It was months in the making. With the help of his longtime friend and documentary filmmaker Danny Pierce, Chuck had everything set. Hidden among the trees was a high-def camera with a clear view of the bench and path. A small mic tucked under his coat would catch every word, every insult, every whisper. Chuck didn't come here to provoke. He came to observe. What would happen when the only threat he posed was the way he looked? 30 minutes passed. Nothing. People ran by, walked their dogs, held hands, laughed. A flowing stream of life, and Chuck was just a rock in it, unmoving and unseen. Not a glance, not a smile. He was invisible. Then a well-dressed woman approached with her young son. The boy, maybe 7 or 8, looked at Chuck curiously. Kids, Chuck thought, always see the world clearly before adults teach them not to. The boy whispered something to his mom. She shot Chuck a quick glance, cold and sharp, then tugged her son's hand. "Don't stare," she muttered, not softly enough. They walked faster, putting distance between them and the man on the bench. Chuck didn't move. But something in him sank. The boy wasn't scared, just curious. And already, he was learning that some people don't even deserve a second look. Moments later, a couple passed by talking loud enough for Chuck and the camera to hear. "This park's going downhill," the woman scoffed. First tense, now people just sitting around. "Yeah," the man replied, barely looking Chuck's way, "they really ought to clean this place up." Chuck gripped the paper bag a little tighter. To them, he wasn't a person. Just a problem. From the trees, Danny's voice crackled into Chuck's earpiece. "They're already showing their cards. Just keep sitting tight." Chuck stayed calm. No rush. The truth always comes out, and he had all day to let the world show its face. He leaned back on the bench, patient, silent, and waiting for the mask of society to fall. His eyes were low, but alert, scanning, observing, learning. Even behind the rough disguise, Chuck Norris's seasoned gaze picked up everything: the sidelong glances, the tight jaws, the subtle sidesteps. Few saw him as a person. Most walked by like he was just another part of the scenery, a worn bench, a forgotten leaf, something to avoid. They didn't see a legend. They didn't see the man who once inspired millions on screen. They just saw a problem to ignore. But Chuck wasn't here for recognition. He was here for something heavier than fame. Another 30 minutes passed. Central Park throbbed with life, but Chuck sat on the outside of it, present, but invisible. The longer he remained, the clearer the pattern became, a few looks of pity, many of disdain, but mostly cold indifference. And Chuck knew this was just the first layer. Whispers and awkward glances weren't the real test. That came when power entered the picture. And power always comes, eventually. This was just the beginning. The sun climbed higher, draping the park in gold. Footsteps, laughter, the rustle of amber leaves, the city played on like a symphony. And still, one figure didn't move. A man frozen in time, unmoved in a rushing current. Chuck Norris, beneath the mask of a nameless drifter, waited, still in body, but ready in spirit. Every sound, every shift in the air, he felt it. Then came the break, the discord. Laughter. Loud, sharp, careless. A group of 4 teenagers rolled into the scene on bikes, their energy wild and reckless, like a storm arriving early. They tore along the path, voices slicing through the calm. Chuck felt it before they even reached him, that pack mentality, the kind that feeds on silence and isolation. One of them, thin and wiry with his cap turned backwards, spotted Chuck. His grin curled like a knife. "Yo, check it out," he shouted to his friends, nodding toward the bench. Old man set 10 up camp. The others slowed, circling Chuck like wolves testing their prey. One, bulkier, with a torn hoodie, laughed and sneered, "Nice cardboard condo, Gramps. Utah Keen reservations?" Chuck didn't react. But he was watching. He saw the swagger, the twitching impatience, the thrill of easy targets. They thought they'd already won. The wiry teen dropped his bike and swaggered forward, gravel crunching beneath his feet. "You deaf or something, old man? We're talking to you." Chuck's voice came slow and steady, low as a distant storm. "Just enjoying the park, boys. You should try it." But they weren't here to enjoy anything. They wanted entertainment, and they wanted Chuck to be the unwilling show. One of them nudged the paper bag beside Chuck with his sneaker, knocking it to the ground. "Oops," he said, smirking. "Dropped your 5-star dinner." The group cracked up, sharp, hollow laughter. The tension in the air thickened, coiled like a wire pulled too tight. A few people walking by slowed, eyes flicking toward the scene, but no one stepped in. No one wanted trouble. The wiry kid crouched lower, voice nastier now. "Bet you got money, huh? Old dudes like you always got some spare change. Come on, spot us a few bucks." Chuck's gaze lifted. Calm. Focused. Ice cold. "Sorry, kid," he said. "You're begging the wrong man." The teen's smile twisted into something darker. "Begging? Nah. We're collecting taxes. Park fees, you know?" And then he reached. His hand shot out, grabbing for Chuck's hood. But the second it crossed that invisible line, something primal snapped. Chuck moved with the precision of a lifetime. No anger, just pure, focused power. In a flash, his hand closed around the kid's wrist, not to hurt, but to stop. To show. The boy gasped, knees buckling. His cocky mask shattered, replaced by panic. He hit the ground hard, breath knocked out of him. The laughter died. The pack froze. Shock. One of them muttered, "What the hell, what are you?" Chuck's voice, steady and sharp as a blade, cut through the silence. "Just a man who knows when enough's enough." No one moved. The wind shifted the trees. The world held its breath. Then the biggest kid blurted, "Yo, let's bounce." Grabbed his bike, voice cracking. "Screw this." And they were gone. Tires skidded across the pavement as the group fled. One of them pulled out his phone, turning back just long enough to record a blurry shot of Chuck, still sitting on the bench. That clip would end up online, clipped and out of context. But they didn't stay. They didn't dare. There was something in the air around this man, something sharp, something real. And when the dust settled, Central Park exhaled. The harmony returned, but not all was at peace. The few who'd stopped and watched didn't clap. They didn't cheer. Their expressions didn't show relief, but judgment. And standing off to the side, phone clenched in her hand, a woman kept watching. "Did you see that? He attacked that kid," a woman muttered tightly under her breath. Beside her, a man shook his head, voice low but judgmental. They were just kids, rough, sure. But he didn't have to go that far. Another voice, sharp and accusing, cut through from behind. "Call the cops. That guy's dangerous." Chuck sat still, stone silent, but he could feel the shift. The air around him changed. A moment ago, he was the one being harassed. Then, the one who stood his ground. Now, in the eyes of the growing crowd, he was the villain. A faint siren began to rise in the distance, weaving into the crisp autumn air like the edge of a knife. Someone had already made the call. From the trees, Danny's voice crackled through Chuck's earpiece, tense, urgent. "Heads up, Chuck. Cops inbound. And they're coming in hot." Chuck's jaw tightened. He hadn't come here to fight, but reality didn't care about intentions. He knew what came next. The truth would get buried beneath perception. The wail of the siren grew louder, slicing through the peaceful rustle of amber leaves. Birds launched from their perches. The few onlookers who hadn't left began stepping back, but they didn't stop filming. Phones were up. Live streams were running. Chuck was no longer a man on a bench, he was content. Then, the cruiser appeared. NYPD. Black and white. It skidded to a halt on the gravel path, tires spraying dust. 2 doors flew open at once. 2 officers stepped out, the embodiment of authority. Navy uniforms. Badges. Batons. Guns. The first, Officer Reed, was young and sharp-edged. His buzz cut and clenched jaw gave him away, the kind of cop who didn't just expect confrontation but craved it. His eyes locked onto Chuck immediately, narrowing with a look that didn't ask questions. It assumed answers. The second, Sergeant Miller, was older, broader, and carried himself with the quiet fatigue of a man who'd seen too much and trusted too little. He moved slower, but every step carried weight. Reed led the charge, boots crunching leaves. "On your feet," he barked, already gripping his baton like a threat waiting for an excuse. Chuck remained seated. Calm. Composed. Ready. "I haven't done anything wrong," he said, voice low and firm. Miller's eyes scanned the scene, the frightened boy in the distance, the abandoned bikes, the crowd filming in silence. His tone was cooler than Reed's, but just as commanding. "We got a call about an assault. You want to tell us what happened here?" Chuck didn't flinch. His voice remained level. "A group of teens tried to provoke me. I stopped one from grabbing me. No punches. No threats. That's it." But Reed wasn't there to listen. He was there to win. "You look like you've been loitering here all day," he sneered. "Causing trouble. Scaring people." Chuck's hand stayed calmly on his knees. "It's a public park. I've got just as much right to be here as anyone." Reed's lip curled, his stance widening. The moment was teetering on the edge. "You don't have the right to harass kids. Show me some ID, or what? Too busy panhandling to carry one?" Chuck's eyes, cool and unmoving, met Reed's. "Unless you're charging me with a crime, I don't have to show you anything." The air tightened. Phones zoomed in. Fingers hovered over record buttons. Every blink, every breath captured. Miller, still holding back the leash, stepped forward with caution in his voice. "Let's not escalate this," he said, scanning Chuck's face, and something flickered in his eyes. Recognition? Doubt? Maybe both. "We got a call. We're responding. Help us understand what we're walking into." But Reed was done waiting. "I'm done with the back and forth," he snapped. "On your feet. Hands where I can see 'em." His baton slipped free, Just a few inches. But enough. Chuck didn't move. Not out of fear, out of control. "Don't reach for that," he said calmly. But it was already too late. Reed yanked the baton free. It cut the air with a whistle. Chuck moved. In a blur, his hand met Reed's wrist, not with violence, but with precision. The baton never landed. Chuck redirected it, guiding it harmlessly off course. It clattered to the ground. The attack disarmed before it began. Reed's eyes went wide. His body twisted, off balance. Miller's voice thundered, "Reed, stand down." But humiliation burned hotter than orders. Reed snarled and lunged, reaching for Chuck's collar, desperate for control. He never got close. Chuck shifted. Not dramatically, just enough. A turn. A flick. A redirection. Reed's own momentum betrayed him. In the blink of an eye, he was on the ground. And every camera caught it. Reed was on his knees, breath knocked from him, his world suddenly smaller and quieter. Miller's hand went to his holster, but decades of instinct made him pause. He didn't see rage in Chuck. No aggression. No violence. Just control, complete and unwavering. Chuck hadn't thrown a punch. Hadn't retaliated. Only acted with precision, just enough to stop what needed stopping. Miller's voice cut through the silence. Firm. Final. Enough. Reed, step back. Reed's face was red, his knuckles white with rage as he spat onto the gravel. He. I said stand down. Miller's stare froze him in place. Reed wavered, fists trembling, pride battling duty. Slowly, he took a step back, chest heaving, eyes locked on Chuck with quiet fury. And then, Chuck rose. Unfolding to his full height, he stood tall and unshaken. For a brief second, something flickered in Miller's eyes, not fear, not recognition, but curiosity. A question that hadn't been there before. Still, the sergeant kept his voice steady. "What's your name?" Chuck didn't flinch. "Does it matter?" Miller's jaw tensed, but he held his tone. "We need to verify the situation. A lot of witnesses. A lot of phones. You okay with that?" Chuck's gaze swept across the growing crowd, silent, filming, judging. A sea of glass eyes catching every breath. "I'm counting on it," he said, voice quiet but anchored. But the crowd wasn't done. Someone stepped forward, a woman clutching a leash, her dog tense at her side. "He didn't do anything," she shouted. "Those kids started it. I saw the whole thing." A man in a suit lowered his phone, nodding. "Your officer escalated that way too fast. You're pointing at the wrong person." And just like that, the tide turned. What began as whispers grew louder. No longer just bystanders, they became witnesses. Reed's voice dropped, bitter and angry. "Phones don't mean truth. People see what they want to see." But Miller knew better. Phones don't lie. And neither did public opinion. Then, static cracked from Reed's radio. "Unit 12, status report." Miller's mic clicked. "Unit 12. Situation under control. No injuries. Witnesses present. Standing by." But Reed jumped in before the line went cold. "Unit 12 requesting ID check. Individual claims no ID. Name given." He stared at Chuck, voice sharp. "Calvin Broadus." A flicker passed through Chuck's eyes, not panic. Not fear. Just a quiet readiness. The radio buzzed. "Unit 12, stand by for results." The silence was heavy. The tension back, coiled tighter than before. All around them, phones stayed up. Streams running. Comments flying. Then came the voice. "Unit 12. No record found. No match on file." Silence. Reed's face twisted. The threat of control fraying. Run it again. The reply came cold. No match. Individual, not in system. Miller's brow furrowed. Something wasn't adding up. This man, the way he stood, the calm in his voice, the exactness of his movements, this was no vagrant. Miller had seen professionals before. Chuck wasn't bluff. He was built different. Reed, still burning with humiliation, snarled. Fake name. Fake everything. What are you hiding? Chuck's voice came smooth and cold. The only thing fake here is your assumption. The crowd held its breath. The moment suspended in electric tension. Somewhere behind the scenes, Danny's hidden camera kept rolling, capturing every breath, every twitch, every choice. Chuck stood at the eye of the storm, unshaken. Leaves rattled above them in the breeze, whispering over the scene like nature itself was watching. Reed stood stiff, his pride shattered in front of an audience he couldn't silence. His fists clenched, then unclenched. Again. His face flushed. His authority broken. The dispatcher's voice still echoed in his ear. No record found. And he couldn't take it. Wouldn't take it. He had to win. Miller watched it all. Saw the unraveling. Read the signs. The man standing before them wasn't some nobody. His discipline, his posture, it told a different story. One that didn't fit the report. Then, quietly, Chuck broke the silence. No matches. No ID. No label to slap on me. That's the problem, right? Reed hissed, his voice venom. It just means you're lying. What's your game? What are you hiding? Chuck's stare was unblinking. Maybe the question is, what are you hiding, from the people watching, from yourself? That was it. The tension snapped. Reed's hand shot forward, a final, desperate lunge. Just as Reed lunged for Chuck's collar, a voice cracked through the air like a whip. Enough. The crowd parted as a woman strode forward, calm, composed, but commanding. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her presence cut through the scene with surgical precision. The badge on her belt gleamed beneath the tailored suit. Captain Evelyn Carter. NYPD Internal Affairs. She didn't slow her pace. Officer Reed, stand down. Immediately. Reed spun around, face flushed. Captain, this. She cut him off with a look that could freeze steel. I didn't ask for commentary. Then, again, flat, final. Stand. Down. Sergeant Miller stepped back, relief in his shoulders. Captain Carter. She didn't look at him. I can see the situation. Her eyes locked on Chuck, not hostile, but calculating. And you, she said, voice even. I'd like to know who you really are. But before Chuck could speak, another voice, clear and confident, rang out from the tree line. It's all on tape, Captain. The crowd turned. A man emerged from the shadows, holding a handheld camera. Danny Pierce. The unseen witness to it all. His camera still blinked red, recording. We've been filming since before your officers arrived, Danny said. Every word. Every action. Including the part where your officer escalated without cause. Gasps. Murmurs. The crowd shifted. Some stepped forward. He was just sitting there. The kid started it. Your guy jumped him for no reason. The tide that once judged Chuck was now turning. Carter processed it all in seconds. You've been recording the entire time? Danny nodded. Live. To over 200,000 viewers, and counting. A flicker passed over her face, not fear, but calculation. Then Chuck spoke. Not to Carter. Not just to the crowd. But to everyone watching. This was never about me. It's about what people do when they think no one's watching. He turned his eyes on Reed. It's about what they reveal when they think they can get away with it. Reed snapped. This is entrapment. You set me up. Chuck didn't flinch. No one told you how to act. You did that all on your own. Then, Carter's voice. Cold. Clear. Final. Reed. Badge. Gun. Now. The crowd gasped. Reed froze. You can't be serious. She didn't blink. I've seen enough. You're on administrative leave pending full investigation. Reed's hands trembled. He unholstered his weapon, unclipped his badge, moved like a man cutting off a limb. You think you've won something, he spat at Chuck. Chuck's reply was soft, but razor sharp. People like me aren't the problem. People like you are. Reed thrust the items into Carter's hand and stormed off, through a sea of recording phones and judgmental stares. Silence followed. Carter turned back to Chuck. I still don't know who you are. Chuck's posture softened. It never was a coincidence, he said. Danny, with a quiet smile, added, Captain, I think you're about to find out. Chuck pulled out a phone, opened a stream, held it high. Thousands of comments scrolled by in real time. The world was watching. This isn't about one cop, Chuck said. It's about choices people make when they think they won't be held accountable. Then, to the world. Power doesn't corrupt. It reveals. So now the question is, what are you going to do about it? The silence that followed wasn't chaos. It was clarity. Some clapped. Some cried. Many simply stood there, shaken, but awakened. Carter held Reed's badge tightly. This isn't over, she said. Chuck nodded. It never is. Days later. The footage spread like wildfire. Online. On TV. On the floor of Congress. Hashtag Norris versus NYPD. Hashtag Power and Accountability. Hashtag See the Truth. Arguments flared. Opinions clashed. But one question echoed louder than all others. What would I have done? Reed's career collapsed. Complaints buried for years came to light. Miller, though not violent, was ordered into mandatory retraining. But his real punishment was internal. The image of Chuck, calm, controlled, haunted him. And Chuck? He didn't go on talk shows. He didn't chase the headlines. He returned to the one place this all began. Central Park. No disguise. No camera. Just him. And the old bench. Taped to it, a new message. Your story matters. Always. Chuck smiled. Just a little. 1 week later, behind closed doors, he stood before a room full of officers. Not to attack. To teach. The hardest fight isn't with fists, he told them. It's with judgment. It's with who you are when no one's watching. Captain Carter stood beside him. Sergeant Miller sat in the front row, eyes heavy with learning. Chuck's final words lingered in the air. Control without conscience isn't law. It's tyranny. The room didn't applaud. But it listened. And that was enough. Back in Central Park, beneath the falling leaves, Chuck sat again. A man with no camera. No disguise. Just the wind, the bench, and the truth. If this story moved you, subscribe for more powerful narratives. Share this video to keep the conversation going. And remember, change starts with what we choose to see.